We disagree on almost everything. But if there's one character flaw uniting every political, social, and cultural faction in absolute hatred, it's the hypocrite. To understand why, we need to categorize it. First, there's effective hypocrisy. That's simply faking an emotion. It's smiling politely and offering a hearty congratulations to a coworker you secretly can't stand. Then there's cognitive hypocrisy. This is lying about your deeply held beliefs purely for survival. Think of someone agreeing with an oppressive authoritarian regime just to avoid being punished. Finally, we reach the primary target of our collective rage: behavioral hypocrisy. This is when you explicitly state a moral belief, and then your physical actions directly contradict it. We tend to forgive the polite white lies and the necessary survival tactics, but we view that behavioral contradiction as a profound, unforgivable betrayal of trust. Take Thomas Jefferson. He famously wrote that slavery was a moral depravity, yet he actively bought and sold human beings throughout his life. But look at Oskar Schindler. In 1939, he voluntarily joined the Nazi Party. He posed as a loyal supporter, specifically to build a refuge inside his factories, ultimately saving over 1,200 Jewish lives. Or consider a cultural myth like Huckleberry Finn. He genuinely accepted the antebellum ideology that helping a runaway slave was a mortal sin, yet he chose to commit that exact sin to protect his friend Jim. If the act of behavioral hypocrisy is inherently evil, we have a problem. Why are Schindler and Finn celebrated as absolute heroes, while Jefferson is condemned? The answer seems straightforward. We approve of the outcome. Saving lives overwrites the ideological inconsistency. But that logic reveals something surprising about hypocrisy itself. Imagine a car traveling down a road exceeding the posted speed limit. If that car strikes a pedestrian, the physical injuries are caused strictly by the physics of the impact. The victim's suffering is completely unaffected by the driver breaking a traffic law. Now, apply that exact logic to Jefferson. The people he enslaved suffered the exact same miseries of bondage, regardless of whether he wrote elegantly about freedom or unapologetically embraced cruelty. Hypocrisy, in and of itself, is a morally neutral variable. It creates zero direct, measurable, physical, or emotional harm to the victims of the underlying crime. So, if hypocrisy is practically harmless on its own, why do our brains instinctively react to it with words like nauseating or disgusting? Philosophers describe this as an aesthetic offense. It's a visceral, sensory rejection triggered when we witness someone who is out of harmony with themselves. It feels like encountering physical decay. Real-world exploitation and cruelty are complex, systemic issues that take enormous time and effort to prove and articulate. But a person's visible inconsistency, that is glaringly obvious. We enthusiastically prosecute the hypocritical cover-up because it is a much easier, more emotionally satisfying target than doing the hard work of dismantling the actual crime. This dynamic makes the accusation of hypocrisy an incredibly effective weapon. In modern political and cultural arenas, calling someone a hypocrite is the fastest way to shut down debate and halt progress. The problem is that simply participating in the modern global economy forces all of us into unavoidable structural contradictions. We are all incidental hypocrites. We criticize wealth inequality while utilizing every available tax break. We demand urgent environmental action while flying on airplanes. We protest corporate monopolies while relying on Amazon two-day shipping. The only way to achieve perfect, unassailable moral consistency today is to pack your bags, completely disconnect from society, and live entirely off the grid. Because modern systems make pure ideological consistency impossible, the constant fear of being labeled a hypocrite acts as a trap. It keeps people quiet and enforces the status quo. Compare a deeply flawed environmentalist who occasionally takes a flight but still manages to reduce a small fraction of their footprint against an opponent of regulations who proudly and consistently pollutes. The world would materially improve tomorrow if unapologetically toxic, bigoted, or greedy individuals suddenly transformed into struggling, inconsistent hypocrites trying to do better. Letting the fear of the hypocrite label paralyze you means handing a victory to those who don't even try. It is vastly better to be an inconsistent, imperfect person attempting to do good than a perfectly consistent person doing bad.